Okay, Michael J. here. Earlier today, we had Tariff Day, Liberation Day for Donald Trump. He did this Rose Garden broadcast. Now, we're with the hub, and the reason why I want this here is David Frum, local guy. I met his mom many times, and I knew a developer that knew his father. But David has a really good handle on what's going on, and he's able to read what's going on as well. And most people here in Canada are not aware of the situation. And so they expect the politicians here in Canada to have a game plan of what you're going to do. And the issue is when you're dealing with Donald Trump, because I know Trump in ways that other people do not. And it's going back for a couple of decades now. And so you're making these expectations. There was a guy that was with the auto workers that was being interviewed. Very well, the government should have a handle on it, and other unions are looking at pulling tool equipment. And you guys just don't get what's going on. You don't realize what's going on. And the guy that's got the best handle on things right now is a guy by the name of Mark Carney, because Pierre Poilievre, he has no friggin' clue what's going on. And Jagmeet Singh, which I kind of like him. But between him and Poilievre, I don't think either one is suitable for now. And I don't think either one is suitable to make the transition with the Canadian landscape the way we need right now. I don't think either one has the tools for it. And that's my personal opinion. But let's look at what David Frum has to say. Any questions, comments, let me know in chat. Oops. Wrong button.
American beef, yet we imported $3 billion.
We're listening to Trump a little bit first.
It's Frederick Griffiths here, the publisher of The Hub. We're just listening in on President Trump, joined now by David Frum. David, thank you for coming on to the program at short notice here to do a live breakdown and analysis. We're going to take a bit more of the president, see if there's some key news here, and then we'll jump to David in the next few minutes, get his early reactions and bop back and forth. So play along with us. Let's go back to the president.
113%. In Japan, our friend charges us 700%, but that's because they don't want us selling rice and other things. Who can blame them, Madam Secretary? Agriculture, great job you did on eggs, by the way. The egg prices came down 50%. You got them down 50%. Once we got involved, they were going through the sky. The egg prices,
still about $10 a friggin' dozen.
You did a fantastic job. Now we have lots
That's
of
US
eggs,
dollars.
and much cheaper down, about 59% now, and they're going down further. We charge 2.8% for so many things that other countries are charging 200%, 300%, and 400% for. If imposing tariffs and protective barriers made nations poor, then every country on earth would be racing to eliminate these policies, and China would be the first on line. They run a very strong.
Okay, so one thing that I just want to interrupt here just to set up before we get into it. What you need to understand is we have not seen anything like this, what Trump's doing, for 100 years. We just finished going through a pandemic that we had not seen in 100 years. Now we're going into a situation with tariffs. And I reflect back on the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in 1929 that created the Great Depression as what's being done by Trump here. Trump seems to get it on his brain that he's got something that's going to revolutionize everything. But he's just freaking just destroying the economy around the world, and it's hurting everybody. And he's doing it indiscriminately without compunction whatsoever. But we haven't seen anything like this in 100 years. And nobody's prepared for this.
Country, but they're not first in line, and the American people are paying a very big price. From 1789 to 1913,
okay,
we were
going to
a
go to
tariff.
David. Let's keep the full screen of the president there. We'll just sense, David, there's a few rabbit holes that we're going to go down here before we get any news on a global tariff. We are seeing, though, David, a reiteration on autos, 25%, a global tariff. This would suggest, David, that the president really has dug in on this, and I assume that we should be thinking that Canada in the auto sector now officially has a problem.
Yeah. Well, first, let's just do a little compare and contrast. When Ronald Reagan came to office in 1981, he was campaigning on a tax cut plan that had been discussed for 2 years before he entered office, the Kemp Roth tax cut. Everybody knew what the approximate shape of that tax cut would be. You could be for it, you could be against it, but you knew what you were going to get. And when you went into the voting booth on voting day, you knew what you were voting for or against. Barack Obama was not able to give people that much lead time because he was elected in the middle of a financial crisis. But again, the measures he took were broadly discussed, well understood. There's a big debate between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans wanted to bail out financial companies only. Democrats wanted to help also non-financial companies. You could cast your vote and take your choice. In this case, it's now April of the first year, almost halfway into the first year of the Trump presidency. And they are making it up. We are watching an announcement, and 15 minutes past the start time, we still have no idea what the president is going to do. We wonder whether he had any idea of what he was going to do at lunch today.
Right.
I wonder if he even has any idea what he's going to do as he's talking, because this gibberish, this flow of made-up numbers, suggests a man deep in the stream of consciousness who's still sort of winging it and hoping for inspiration. So never has so much of the world economy been up for grabs to the very last second behind a policy driven by equal combinations of ignorance and malice.
David, as we await the details of the president's announcement, I want to take up something else happening in Washington today. Canadians over the past several weeks, as you know, have felt like no one is speaking on our behalf or on the behalf of our bilateral trade relationship. But that appears to have changed in recent days. There is a debate taking place in the Senate, a bipartisan debate challenging the president's targeting of Canada with tariffs. Why don't you just reflect on it and its possible significance?
Okay, what you have to understand about these tariffs, the way Trump is doing it, he's doing it by executive order. He's not doing it through Congress. He's doing it by executive order. And he's utilizing the International Powers Act, Emergency Powers Act. So it's a shady way of doing it, and this is why he has to use fentanyl as the excuse in order to do it. So this is all being rammed through in a really haphazard way, and not really above board and straightforward the way things normally should be. So he's utilizing the International Emergency Powers Act, using fentanyl and immigration as an excuse in order to do these executive orders.
Yeah, this is a symbolic debate in the Senate about a sense of the Senate resolution to disapprove of the tariffs on Canada. It doesn't have any binding effect, but it looks like it's going to pick up about 5 Republican senators, including former Senate leader Mitch McConnell, who are going to cast their votes with the Democrats to condemn the trade war on Canada. In the immediate term, it doesn't mean much. Congress has delegated so much trade power to the president over the years that unless they were to take that power back, which would take a majority of both houses, they're quite powerless to stop him. But it is a warning, especially after the bad results that the president's party got in yesterday's vote, that his coalition may be coming under strain here. The president was promising, you'll see great results in a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. Well, people who are up for re-election in 2026, including the senator from North Carolina, Tom Tillis, who's one of the more endangered Republicans in the Senate. Many Republicans are endangered in the House. They're thinking, you're telling me that when I go to my job review, it's going to be misery and pain. But you're promising that at some point down the road, maybe a year, maybe two, maybe three, who knows, maybe a decade, maybe 100 years, there'll be some benefit. The Trump coalition is coming under pressure. This measure is so reckless. And meanwhile, I thought you were going to draw attention to another thing. Through the House and Senate are proceeding the Republican tax bills, which are for gigantic tax cuts aimed at the very top of the economy, with then special favors distributed maybe to people who are receiving tips, maybe to high-income retirees, maybe. Again, everything's very uncertain. It's like their signal group. They don't know what they're doing until.
Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of what Polyev is doing. And what do I mean by that? Well, to do these tax cuts, what Trump has to do is nick Medicaid, because he's got some big tax cuts he's doing. And so he has to get the money from Medicaid, which is, it's like health care for Canadians. So, he's taking it from that, so you got to take it from services. And that's why they're gutting all the different institutions, because these tax cuts are big, a lot of money. And it's to the top 1 in 10% of the people. They're the only ones that really benefit from it. The average guy in the $55,000, $57,000 a year tax bracket is paying an extra $1,500. But this is why they got to come up, and this is why they're doing the tariffs also, to create the revenue to do these tax cuts. And you got to understand, a tariff is a bad tax. It's not a normal tax. It's a bad tax on your people. And it's really, you got to be careful how you use tariffs.
The very last minute. And even after they've done it, they're not quite sure what they've done.
Yeah. It's interesting because off the top of the speech there, David, he did mention, in a sense, the billions in revenue and income that these tariffs will bring into the United States. And I think it's worth reminding viewers, this is an income tax. It's such a bizarre scenario. Someone who campaigned on, a tax, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, is now implementing one of the largest, tax increases in recent American history.
That's
let's
correct.
be very clear how crazy and impossible this is. If you collect revenue from a tariff, that means the tariff did not keep out the foreign good, and the domestic industry is as exposed to competition as ever. If the tariff does keep out the foreign good and the domestic industry gets the protection, which is presumably the point of this exercise, then you don't collect the tariff. It can't both protect and raise revenue. It's one or the other. And probably what will happen is it'll be some mixture of both, which is some domestic industries will get some protection and prices will therefore go up and consumers will pay those. And some revenue will be collected and consumers will pay those. What a tariff is the worst kind of consumption tax. It falls quite randomly according to what percentage of the product is imported from another country. Of course, it falls most heavily on those least able to pay. And everyone who studied this finds that if you're in the top 10%, it's a less burden. If you're in the top 1%, it's almost no burden at all. If you're in the bottom 50%, well, no tax on tips. Here's a tip for you. But meanwhile, you are going to be paying more for shoes, for clothes, for food.
David, let's just go back to the president. He's pulled up a billboard, I think, is coming out now. I'm a little curious as to what this prop is. Let's go sound up on the president.
Yeah, so this shows you how unprepared Trump really is. The fact of the matter, he's got to bring up this presentation at the podium. You've never seen anything like this. Only from Agent Orange and Pierre Polyev, the masters of slogans, the slogan kings.
China, first row. China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think In other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything. But now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's
Can I say
so
something
pathetic.
about
39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46% tariff. Taiwan, where they make...
I don't see Canada on that list yet.
Here's
My
the
eyes
important
aren't
point
good
about
enough.
Here's the
go ahead,
important thing
David.
about that chart. If you're doing a White House event, and you need an audiovisual aid, you make it big enough that the camera can see it, right? That's the whole point of this. And then if it's a little windy, as it is today, then you frame it, you put it on. What Trump brought out was the chart that was shown to him in the Oval Office at lunchtime or today.
Right.
And he liked it so much that he brought it out with him. And he's holding it up himself because he liked it. But it's an example of how this is all being they're winging it. Why isn't this chart a size?
Yeah, they're flying by the seat of their pants. Everything they're doing, flying by the seat of their pants.
Big enough for the camera to see? Why isn't it propped up? Why is the president of the United States himself holding a chart? Presidents, you'll notice if you look at any other photograph of any other president, they never hold anything up because it's undignified. It detracts from the majesty of the person in the office. So he is acting in a way that tells us that this chart was prepared for lunch, and he liked it and brought it out. Because probably as of noon, he wasn't quite sure what he was going to do.
But Sean, I mean, again, this is all unfolding chaotically before our eyes. But I mean, if that's a 34% reciprocal tariff on China, on all Chinese imported goods, again, we don't exactly know what's being said here. Maybe this is a reciprocal tariff on Chinese chopsticks. I don't know. But these look like big numbers, Sean. This looks like he's gone possibly big.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what the principal motivation is. Is it about trade, or as David raised, is this really about trying to maximize revenue in the short term to reconcile the administration's interest in renewing the tax cut legislation and possibly augmenting it at the same time that it's facing new pressure on Washington's poor public finances? It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of President Trump, I understand, David, but help our audience understand.
First and foremost, why he's doing this is he wants to finance the tax cut. The tax cut's the most important thing to him. And this is the biggest tax cut in the history of the United States, pretty much. And also, he believes that tariffs will create these revenues. He's got it in his brain that tariffs are going to create these revenues, but we're not in the 18th century anymore. It's 2025, and this is where the issue is.
What really is at the heart of today's announcement?
What's at the heart of today's announcement is that Donald Trump doesn't believe in a world of mutual benefit. He believes in I win, you lose.
He's a predator.
He thinks like a predator.
Yeah.
Whether it's sex, whether it's business, whether it's trade, whether it's politics, he thinks in terms of structures of domination and retaliation. So the whole idea of trade, one of the reasons it's all mumbo jumbo, is he doesn't understand what he's talking about. And it's like someone who's never seen the ocean trying to describe the sea and to understand what the sea does. He just doesn't get it. And so, I mean, he has this idea that if there's a trade deficit, you are somehow subsidizing the receiving company. The surplus country is subsidizing the receiving country. When, of course, if you're thinking this way, it's actually the subsidy runs the other way around. It's not the deficit country that is subsidizing the sending country. The sending country is sending products and receiving paper. But it's not, in his mind, what he sees is other countries seem to be doing well in some ways. Therefore, that's at the American expense. Therefore, that's at his expense, and therefore they must be punished. And then he throws around these numbers, which are little fragments of briefings, ill-remembered, snatching off displays that were shown to him at his lunch, and at trying to make sense of all of this. But meanwhile, what we all face there's been a lot of talk over the past week about the risk of stagflation in the United States. But
that's correct.
It
It's a
sounds
serious
like what we're heading for.
possibility.
It's not stagflation at all, but a true international depression. If Trump makes good on this, these are Smoot-Hawley level trade blows.
That's correct.
On a world economy that's already got a lot of question marks over it. It's the destruction of American leadership, and he's inviting people to negotiate with him after having demonstrated that his word is worthless. Who's going to do a deal with someone who said, well, I know I signed this agreement with Canada and Mexico in my first term. I don't consider myself bound by it at all. Well, if you're not bound, why would anybody sign a new deal with someone who repudiates the old at a whim?
Mm-hmm. Let's just briefly dip into the president's remarks again and see if where he is at in this charitably put freewheeling presentation.
At the gate, because the money is so enormous that you're talking about. There's never been probably anything like it in terms of the enormity. And there are a lot of bad things happen at the people that do the check-in, and they're looking at 10-year jail sentences if they do play. We're going to treat them so good, but if they cheat, the repercussions are going to be extremely strong. Foreign nations will finally be asked to pay for the privilege of access to our market, the biggest market in the world. We're right now the biggest market in the world. We had a great country 4 years ago in terms of the economics. We were doubling up on China. We were doing so well. Nobody was going to catch us, but so much of it slipped away over the last 4 years under Biden. I campaigned on this policy throughout last year, and today that promise was made, and it was also a promise, as you know, that was kept.
32%, Japan, an ally, 24%. I guess we'll have to hear whether.
Yeah, these tariffs are going to rock. This is going to hurt everybody worldwide. It's going to.
And whether they're stacking, Rudyard, because we also have
rock the
sectoral
markets.
tariffs in different industries, including.
But here's another thing you've got to remember: the United States has had the privilege of being the reserve currency of the world, and they were given that due to the Second World War. Because of what happened in the Second World War, they were allowed to have the American currency as the reserve currency for the world for trade. And they've abused that privilege many, many times because they could run deficits in ways that nobody else could, because they were the reserve currency for the world. And if you look at 2008, the market crash, well, it's the Americans that caused it. They friggin' destabilized the world because of their deregulation of banking systems, too much private money in the wrong hands, and it was too risky investments, and the markets crashed. And it's because of greed. And this is the real issue here. And this is the issue with this guy here, Trump. Greed's motivating him, and he'll harm people. He doesn't care who he harms. He'll do it without compunction.
Being autos, aluminum, steel. So in certain instances, the tariffs on the screen may not even fully capture the degree of protection reflected in the administration's overall trade policy.
Tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America. And we've seen companies coming in like...
Yeah, but he thinks a plant, people can just set up new auto plants in the United States in a year. It just doesn't work like that. And the investment. And, as it's been mentioned, this guy's word's no good. Iran had a nuclear deal with the United States. Barack Obama did it. This guy, Trump, ignored the deal. Just totally ignored it, just like he did with the North American Free Trade deal. And then we had to renegotiate to make a USMCA deal, which now he's not honoring again either. So the guy doesn't honor deals. So nobody's going to want to do a deal with the United States. And this is the reason why we have a problem in dealing with the United States. And it's going to be a problem for the next 4 years. And this guy wants a third term. And this is what people don't get it. And this is why Pierre Poilievre is not the guy to be dealing with Trump. Like Carney's done, he's gone to Europe. Let's work some new trade agreements, and this is the way we've got to go. And also Carney's got it so that by July 1, all the interprovincial trade barriers should be eliminated to help offset a lot of this terrier damage that we're going to have to face. And this is what people don't get. Poilievre's just reverting back to what this guy Trump's doing. That's all. Jagmeet Singh, I like him, but he's not mature enough to stick handle us through this situation right now. The affordability situation's a different thing, and most of that affordability situation is twofold. And number one is 2020, you had a pandemic, worldwide situation, changed the way, just decimated the economies of the world everywhere. And we're only just starting to get out of it now, and then we got to deal with this guy Trump. And the reason why he got into power is because people only remember what they've had for lunch that day, and they forget what caused the inflation spike, and they blame it on the wrong government, and you just put the guy that created the problem back into power. Simple as that. But COVID was a bad thing. This thing here right now can be a really bad thing too, and this is an opportunity for Canada. And nobody's perfect, but as far as I can see, the Liberal Party with Carney is better positioned. They have a better way of understanding, and the proof is in what you see by the way Trump has reacted after a first talk with Mark Carney. It's like night and day the way he was dealing with Canada before that. And that's your first indicator of why I state that and why I recommend that. Any questions, comments, throw in chat. I'm not going to go much further into this. I've made my point. David Frum, he'll just confirm what I'm saying. Like this guy Trump, he only put these tariffs together again today. He's been flying off the seat of his pants. And you can't expect any government, now all the lawyers, this is April the 2nd, all the lawyers are going to be up all night trying to figure out how these tariffs are going to apply to the automotive industry and various other factors. And that's going to come out, we should have a better idea tomorrow. So that's where we're at. So if you think slogans are going to cut it and boots for suits are going to cut it, you're barking up the wrong tree, kids. That's not going to fix our problem. The affordability problem with housing, number one is Bank of Canada, which is outside any political party or government. But the Bank of Canada rate, too much cheap money for too long. And secondly, we haven't been building any housing, which used to be government impetus and programs to do it since 1972. And it's caught up with us because if you look at Ontario and Alberta, the governments are conservative, and conservatives believe in tax cuts and free markets. And that means deregulation. Deregulation, market controls like rent controls have been taken away, eliminated. And then you've had corporations take over all the property rentals in the province of Ontario pretty much. And they've been dealing with an American company, price fixing and jacking the prices up. So you got to understand how we got into this. You're listening to a guy like Poilievre blaming it on people in ways, and it's not valid. It has no merit whatsoever. So questions, comments, please throw in chat. Things spiraling out of control. Take a few deep breaths and do what my buddies do. Sleep on it. Don't make that decision right away. Sleep on it and relax. Love and peace to everybody. Thanks for watching.